Hello again, and welcome to This Week in Triathlon, your one-stop shop for triathlon news, races, gossip, gear, and training. We're your hosts, Kevin in Folsom and Andreas in Berkeley, and today is January 27th, 2014. And before we jump in here with our show, how you doing, Andreas?
I'm doing well, Kevin. Thank you. How are you over there in dry, sunny Folsom?
Well, hopefully it's not going to be too much drier for too much longer. I think the miles might be changing. Finally, we're going to get some snow and some rain, so we're crossing our fingers for it.
Yeah, I grew up in Venezuela for anybody who doesn't know, and there's this little tradition of when you want the rain to go away, you put two knives, you cross them and you stick them into the ground. I don't know if that's something that people do in the U.S. as well, but I was kind of trying that to bring some rain over to the Bay Area recently. It hasn't worked thus far, but I'll keep you posted.
You Venezuelans and your voodoo.
Yeah, as I said, partly joking, obviously, that I'm half Venezuelan, half Italian, and half Norwegian, which obviously is not possible because a half is just half and half. But I think you and Halvard either didn't pick up on that or thought I was an idiot for suggesting that.
Yeah, I'm more thinking you're an idiot. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Well, anyways, we got a full show. Got some fun stuff to talk about today. We're going to talk about kind of my course overview of Challenge Rancho Cordova coming up this year with its debut. We're going to talk about GoPro. I just got the new GoPro Hero 3 Plus Black Edition, and we're going to talk about just GoPro, the things they're doing, the things they're coming out with, and why it's freaking awesome and why everyone should have one. We're going to talk about the Cobb JOF saddle. And but before we jump in with that, some big news in the tri world that's kind of come out over the last week is the great white hope, as he used to be called, the Alan Webb, the star runner back from the early 2000s, has officially, I believe, retired from running and is interested in giving triathlon a go. So, Andreas, you kind of came to me with that information first. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so it's been two weeks in a row where we've had some pretty big news for the sport of triathlon. Obviously, last week with the NCAA decision to pick up women's triathlon as an NCAA emerging sport. But this week, Alan Webb, who was a running phenom coming up through high school and college, running at Michigan, and just like you said, was supposed to be just the this awesome guy through the pro ranks, raced for Nike for a bunch of years, but he did announce his retirement finally from running after a lackluster career and not so many good results, and he's moving on to triathlon, which I think is big for the sport. He's targeting, obviously, without saying so much show, the 2016 Olympics, and with a swimming background. Obviously, his running is fantastic, but with a swimming background, he could play into the selection for the Olympics.
Well, for some of our viewers might not be that familiar with Alan Webb. You said some lackluster results. I have to completely disagree. But starting in 1999, this guy really started to turn a lot of heads when he broke Jim Ryan's sophomore record for the mile in high school. Ran 4:06 mile as a sophomore in high school, and the next year he just about broke 4 minutes, and people were thinking this could be, there's always been guys who was going to be the first to kind of break 4 minutes because no one had done it in a long time, and no one had come even close to coming to break Jim Ryan's record from I think it was like the late 50s, early 60s. When he hit the indoor scene in 2001, he actually broke the 4 minutes of the mile indoors before he did it outdoors. And then later in the season at the pre-classic, his senior year of high school, he ran 3:53 as a senior in high school, smashing Jim Ryan's record of 3:55. So this guy had so much talent and had so much promise and broke so many records that people thought, really the sky's the limit. This guy could be Olympic gold medalist. This guy could help kind of usher in the new age of American distance running. At the time, you have to understand, when this guy was in high school, he was competing against the guy likes of Ryan Hall. He was way better than Ryan Hall in cross country and track. And Dathan Ritzenheim. These are three big names: Alan Webb, Dathan Ritzenheim, and Ryan Hall. They're all still around. So these guys were all coming through basically about the same class. And
Well, and let me go back and say, and I have to interrupt you because obviously, I mean, the guy's the record holder, the American record holder in the mile, and has had some great times and fantastic performances. But in terms of what he panned out to be, and he never did anything at the Olympic level, and really that's what I'm referring to in terms of what his potential was supposed to be, and what we expected him to do beyond those college years.
Yeah, so I mean, he has shown a lot of range. Throughout his track career, he's run as low as 143 for an 800, which is stupid fast. And I think he's only run the 10K like one or two times, and his PR is 27:30 and change. So his PR is faster than Alistair Brownlee. So Andreas, one of my fantasies with him coming up is I think we've talked about Lucas Verzbickas, the star high school runner that turned a triathlon that crashed terribly, and now is making his return. He's trying to make the Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. It's kind of my fantasy now that Lucas and Alan Webb make it to the Olympics, and I would love to see them coming off the bikes with Jonathan and Alistair Brownlee and leaving them in the dust.
Well, it could certainly play out to be. I mean, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. I know. These guys are, and by these guys I mean the Brownlees. They're proven. They're medalists at the Olympic level. They absolutely have dominated the ITU circuit. Them and Javier Gomez. So we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but one can dream, right? And what a great potential for battle brewing with two Americans and the two brothers in 2016. But it could go two ways for Mr. Webb. He could have similar results as when he transitioned into running out of college, and maybe some injury problems, or he could just be a complete phenom, and that could have been his true calling. So we'll see. We'll know shortly.
Well, just looking at pictures of him, and before we jump off this topic, this guy is built like a freaking dynamo. The guy's 5'9", 145 pounds. When you look at this guy run, he's not super efficient like some of the best distance runners. He's kind of stocky built. He almost looks like he looks like a triathlete. He looks like a cyclist. He's got the big quads, got the big glutes, and he's just an animal. So I hope he. He looks just like he just would really kick butt at triathlon. So I'm rooting for Alan Webb. I would love to see him have some vindication in sport for a guy that's shown so much potential over the years and has somehow managed to keep a pretty big following. I mean, people know who he is. People like him. It would be great for the sport of triathlon to see him break through with some good performances.
No, and I agree. And just so that people know, because it is important. He does have a swim background. I believe his 1500 PR is 16 minutes and some change, which is pretty fast. So, we'll keep following him and see what happens.
Absolutely. So we introduced the topic of Rancho Cordova last week. The race that Challenge is going to be putting in my backyard. Literally, I went out to take some video of the course, and I thought it actually impressed me. I wasn't overly positive, just because I know where that kind of general area is, and I tend to ride up in the foothills. This is kind of down in the valley. But I took some video. What do you think of the video I took, Andreas?
Well, first of all, people can check it out on our website. It's up there, thisweekintri.com. I believe it's the first video that they'll see. But first of all, you did a fantastic job with the video. The course, once you get out of the vicinity of kind of the city area where there's a lot of buildings, a lot of lights. The country roads they're pretty awesome. I mean, a little bit rolling, but fairly flat. It's going to make for a fast course. I can imagine that it's probably windy most of the time. I mean, it's pretty wide open, and being from Northern California, I know that most of the time those wide open roads are typically windy, and it's never. It never seems to be a tailwind or a direct headwind. It seems to always be some sort of crosswind. But it looked interesting. I think the fact that it's just one big loop just makes it that much more awesome because it's not an out and back, it's on a multiple loop course. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, I mean, it looks like it's just a good venue from that point of view.
Yeah, and the swim is going to be great as well. I really like Lake Natomas a lot. It's where a lot of the rowers compete in college on the collegiate level. It's a great. They could actually just use the same lane markers that the boaters use, really, and you could actually walk along the shore if you're a spectator and watch that. So it'll be pretty neat to see. I agree. The bike course, the first half is pretty challenging. Lots of rollers, some nice twisty turns on those farm roads, and then when you come back into town, the run is kind of in a more industrial park area, two loops. Totally flat. I think it's going to be a great race.
Yeah, and like you said in the video, I think one of the more important aspects to a race being successful and attracting people is how convenient is it for people to get to and from and the hotels and the airports. And I mean, Sacramento is one of the least expensive airports to fly in and out of. Southwest flies a lot in and out of there, so you can find some pretty good fares, and there's definitely no lack of hotels. Even within 30-45 minutes, which is pretty reasonable to drive the day of the race.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to watch that video, obviously they can go to our website, and I actually got to mount my new GoPro that I'm very proud to own. I was actually able to use it for the first time checking out the course. So I actually put a little mounting clip on the front of my car and drove the course, and was actually pleasantly surprised for my first time using the GoPro. It actually came out pretty good. I think I'm really just scratching the surface of what this little camera can do. But just stepping back, GoPro got into the business about 10 years ago. A guy named Nick Woodman, who's now a billionaire, took a little bit of a sabbatical after starting an internet startup company. It busted. He took 5 months to go surfing around the world and found that he wanted to take pictures of himself. A lot of people like to see pictures of themselves, take pictures of themselves, action shots. People out there are narcissists, especially triathletes and athletes in general. I think people like, when they're scanning through pictures of a race, they always kind of lean forward when they see pictures of themselves, just kind of crane their necks to kind of see a picture of themselves. And everyone likes to see themselves. So I think he really just tapped that market of, people that want to see themselves, want to see their friends in action, and take pretty good quality video really, really easily. I want to talk a little bit about this little box here. Andreas, you have one of these, don't you?
I don't have the fancy version that you do, but I have the latest version before they switched over to that new body style. Gotcha.
So they've come out with a couple of different iterations. Right now they're on their Hero 3 line, the 3 Plus, and the top line model is the 3 Black. And I'm just going to break this down really simple. Their product line, I think you are totally fine with any of the lower end models, and you only really need the 3 Plus Black Edition if you actually want to do some editing and post-production work. The biggest advantage of having the 3 Plus, which you spend an extra $100 for, is what's called ProTune. And ProTune is essentially, it takes bigger video files and allows you to have a lot better post-production work. So if you want to add a certain color scheme or something like that, you can do that really easily. It looks really, really professional using ProTune. I was playing around with it a little bit. We're going to be using this more for some of our future work with This Week in Triathlon. So having that, if you're just going to use this just for kind of screwing around with your kids or with your friends, or taking some action shots in the pool, I think you're fine with like the 3 Plus, white or silver editions. But if you're going to do a lot of post-production work, want to do some more professional-looking stuff, get the 3 Plus Black.
It's a fantastic camera. I don't know if you knew, but they won a Screen Actors Guild Award. I believe it was the one that they won recently for their contribution to the film industry. They used to sell a lot of them. I watched the video that they have on the website, and the guy whose name I don't know off the top of my head, but the founder was talking about that the people from the industry from the film industry used to go and purchase them at a local auto shop in LA just for stunts and for for a lot of what we use it for. So it's, I mean, it's obviously a great camera that was good enough for people to use in actual films and television shows.
Yeah, kind of the standard in high quality, kind of professional, for like DSLR cameras, for instance, like the Nikon D4 camera is a $6,000 camera. It can shoot 1080p quality video, but only in 30 frames per second. This little $399 camera can shoot in 60 frames per second, 1080, and go all the way up to 4K resolution in a little bit less frames per second. So what they're able to fit in this box, they actually use this on the TV show Breaking Bad. I'm not sure if you knew that. That's one of my favorite shows. But Walter White, if you ever saw that kind of that POV view where like he's walking around the desert, they're actually using these GoPro cameras. It's amazing.
Yeah, and one of my favorite shows right now, actually, before without getting too much off track, is Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. They use a bunch of those. So I think the moral of the story is, for $300, $400, you're getting an awesome camera, and you've used it for obviously this past week to show off the course, and we're going to continue to do so for this week in triathlon.
Yeah, just one thing, just wanted to point out real quick. It comes with this little fisheye lens, so if you can kind of tell when things are shot with the GoPro because it has kind of this fisheye look where everything kind of around the edges of the frame are kind of warped and out of space. You can actually, GoPro has free software that you can use that actually fixes that if you don't want that look. So I know a lot of people, for home video and stuff like that, they don't like that look. So you can easily change that, and just wanted to make sure our viewers knew that. But if you have any questions, feel free to shoot any questions you might have about this to us on This Week in Tri on our website, and looking forward to getting some more use out of this thing.
And it's important to point out that we're not paid by GoPro. We're not sponsored by GoPro. It's just we think it's a cool gadget, and yeah, so we're not promoting it because we have to. We're promoting it because we think it's a cool little gadget.
It is a very cool gadget. I think everyone should have one, and you'll actually notice if you watch the video from the Rancho Cordova course. It was my first try with the camera. One thing I wanted to point out is that the batteries are replaceable. I actually ran out of juice on my battery about 50 miles into the bike course. I was shooting on 1080. It only lasted about an hour, so I didn't know that the battery was only going to last an hour, because you can take up to 5 hours on the video card, but you can swap out the batteries very, very easily. The batteries are cheap. You can get them for like $10 on Amazon, and I recommend getting a couple and hooking this up to whatever you want. So it's fun.
So moving on, we've got one final thing on the agenda, and that's looking at a cool gadget, I guess, more of a piece of equipment, but that's the newest of the Cobb saddles, and that's the Cobb JOF, which stands for just off the front. And you've asked me about this saddle a couple of times, so I'm assuming that it's intriguing to you. At first look, you look at it and it's like, oh, it looks just like an ISM. We've told the story before. We'll tell it again, I'm sure, after this episode. But John Cobb was one of the folks involved in designing the Cobb, or not the Cobb saddle, obviously the Cobb saddle, but the ISM saddle. So naturally, there's going to be some similarities. Where this saddle actually is a little bit different is that it's 55 millimeters in the front, which is a little bit narrower than what you find in I believe all the ISMs. Which I don't know if you've ever had this issue, Kevin. I think you've actually ridden on the ISM before, but a lot of people, they like the ISM, they like how it feels, but the width up front doesn't quite fit. So people end up drilling holes and maybe cramping it down a little bit. Bontrager actually just went as far as coming up with a saddle that has a dial where you can dial in the width up front that you want, which is actually pretty innovative. This saddle, not the lightest by any stretch of the imagination. I just weighed it. They claim it's 330 grams. I weighed it. Actually came in a little bit lighter than that at 320 grams. Yeah, I mean, it's a cool product. No saddle's going to work for everybody. Another last little feature before I open it up for you to ask any questions that you might have is if you can see there, it prevents the two prongs from actually bending below one another. So they're tied together. You'll look a lot of the other split nose saddles. They'll have one side lower than the other, which, I don't know if that means they're getting adjusted to your body or if they're just getting deformed. Either way, this won't happen with this particular saddle.
See, I actually didn't know that it had that feature. So that was one of my primary issues with the ISM. You mentioned the zip ties. I was using zip ties just to get a little bit narrower fit, but also every single ISM, I think I went through 3, and the reason I kept replacing them was because the noses of the saddle, you sit on both sides, and if you're out of balance at all or just kind of wobbly a little bit, they tend to kind of become more uneven. And I actually got to the point where I think one side was almost a centimeter off. And I mean, your back and your pelvis is so sensitive to any of that stuff, with the millions of pedal strokes. So that can really mess up your SI joint, can mess up your back, give you sciatica. I always kind of blamed my my bulging disc in my L5S1 and some of that sciatica. I kind of blamed some of that on my ISM, whether or not that's fair or not. I'm going to continue to blame them for that. But that connection at the front is actually a big innovation over the ISM. Furthermore, Cobb, we have an interview with Cobb that we sat down with at Kona. You can go to our website and check that out, or go to our YouTube channel. John Cobb is a really interesting guy. He loves to fiddle. He doesn't pretend to be an elite triathlete, but he does compete and loves to race and loves to fiddle with things and improve things for his friends and family. And I think it's really cool that he started Cobb Cycles and makes this kind of cool stuff. That saddle that you have, I believe you can actually put a rear carrier on it really, really easily. Is that correct?
That is correct, actually. And see if I can show it off there. You can't really see very well, but it mounts. It's not the best in terms of the sleekest looking or the lightest for that matter. It's nice to have that option, but something like an X-Lab might work better, or if you have one of the bikes where you can put that X-Lab attachment to the seat post, might actually be you might be better off. But it's still good to have the versatility. John Cobb, going back to him, he's been doing this for a long time. The saddle is one of the 3 contact points, but it's 1 or 2 in terms of how important it is, in my opinion, for triathletes, either right behind your shoes and pedals or right ahead of it. So consider it 1A, 1B, depending on how comfortable you're on the saddle. But nothing's going to work for everybody. It's important that you try out different products, and this one may or may not work. Yeah, so I think it's definitely, if you're having saddle issues, first and foremost, check your fit. A lot of times it's not actually the saddle, it's your fit. And if that doesn't solve it, and you do need to try out a new saddle, give this one a try for sure.
Great. Speaking of fit, just I think before we came on, you mentioned Alan Webb. Just to kind of circle back there, I think you said he was getting a fit down at Psychologic in Phoenix. Was that correct?
Well, I don't know for sure. It looked like USAT actually put up a Q&A session that they had with Alan Webb, an article that's just got a bunch of questions and answers from Alan. And one of the pictures on there, it looked like he was at Cyclologic. I didn't see Porrick in the picture. It looked like his fit studio. So I know he's been in Arizona training and working with some of the folks there, and he may have been in his studio. Who knows? But yeah. So Porrick, somebody who's well known. I mean, we were talking about it before we came on the air. So it certainly wouldn't be surprising.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's gonna be about it for us for this week. Am I missing anything else, Andreas?
I don't think so. We had a couple races over the weekend, but nothing huge. The superstar couple, Jody Swallow and James Konama, they won Ironman, their local Ironman South Africa 70.3. Aside from that, no, I think we've covered it all, and I look forward to doing it again sometime soon.
Yeah, well, thanks for tuning into This Week in Triathlon, and as always, we invite you to join the conversation by visiting us at thisweekintri.com and our Facebook page, facebook.com/thisweekintriathlon. So, on behalf of us, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week here on This Week in Triathlon.